Hi, everyone. This is Sheldon. He's going to go into depth with his story of spiritually awakening for all of our soul family, star family that is just waking up. And so you don't feel alone on this crazy, bizarre, yeah, crazy, bizarre journey.
Journey.
I'm sorry. It is a journey, but I have my galactic councils intervening. Go ahead and making jokes. So
So
that's what they do. And I'm like, stop it, guys. Go ahead. Okay.
feel free to jump in whenever. So I'm good
Yes.
with that.
All right.
so
So Sheldon's gonna start and talk about a little bit maybe about what you do too, as far as your services that you offer as well. Okay.
okay, okay. So the whole you and I, when we were talking and you first offered it, I didn't want to share, and I didn't think I was going to, and I just kind of, because I felt like uh, didn't have the kind of awakening that you had, or probably a lot of the people that I think are in your group and part of your family, right?
Hmm.
It felt like there was a lot of people that had really dramatic awakenings, where all of a sudden they're connecting all that stuff, and mine's definitely not like that at all. Wouldn't even necessarily call it awakening. I always have called it just this process of unfolding and healing. That
Yes.
my journey has been about. This continual unfoldment, continual healing process, continual deepening of connection that feels like it'll never end, which is fine, right? That's the process, and I don't think it does end, right?
Yes.
Um,
It
but it's
does.
been sort of gradual over a lot of years. I mean, I was born in '64, so it's a very, almost like a generational kind of thing. So I thought it would be worth sharing, in terms of just that idea of giving people a different perspective on, like you were saying, so that people realize that they're not alone, and there's all different ways that process can look, and mine
Yes.
probably will look more different. Like you're asking me, do you connect with ETs? Yeah. Do you see things? I'm like, nope, nope.
Do you connect with
You're like,
extraterrestrial?
okay. What was that?
It's okay.
Yeah, right. But
Everybody's, yeah.
it's
Everyone's
also
journey
super
is
different, I
different.
think.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So um, in terms of, I think my whole life journey has been more about just becoming more comfortable in my own skin, and sort of sinking into being comfortable, being true to myself, and being who I really am. I think I was born in Colorado, grew up in Arizona in the '60s and '70s, right? I think it
Okay.
was two when we went to Arizona. There was literally no other Asian families, right? So I think you know uh, growing up, kids, we always have hard time. We always get teased. We always, all kids seem like, kids will
Yes.
tease kids, right?
Yes.
Um, so it can be for whatever reason, right? You got freckles, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too smart, you're not smart enough, whatever, right? Mine was, because I was Korean, I was Asian, right? And at that time, people didn't even know what Korean was. They'd be like, you Chinese? I'd be like, no, you Japanese? No, what are you? They literally had no idea, right? Um, which is kind of funny, right? But I think I probably dealt with that the way uh, so many people do. I repressed it. Um, I also sort of became like this sort of overachieving, hardworking, Asian kid, and then I also got into like self-help books, and sort of this. I think this process of, I want to become, seeds of greatness, uh, winning, psychology of winning, and all these kinds of self-help, self-improvement books, probably from this fundamental place that I didn't feel good enough. You know what I mean? So I'm like,
Okay.
it looks positive and good on one level. Oh, you're into self-improvement, but really it's because you don't feel fundamentally at home in your own skin. Um, but ended up, I think in high school also, my mom got dramatically sick from being completely fine to being like bedridden with rheumatoid arthritis my freshman year in high school, couldn't walk throughout her whole body. My dad said I wasn't meant to take care of a sick woman, and he left.
Okay.
So there was this trauma that went on. The house was completely like just falling apart at that time. My dad left and everything, and I was a freshman in high school. And then this was probably one of those things, those moments, right? I get selected to go to this human relations camp in Arizona that, a couple of kids from every high school get sent to it. And it was like a throwback from the hippie days, I think, literally
Okay.
singing Kumbaya around the campfire. And they had like priests and rabbis and ministers, and they were teaching you about all these different beliefs and faiths. And it was trying to like be this, everyone, let's hug each other and love each other. And, I'm this trying to be a tough guy, football player, wrestler, high school jock, you know, whatever, and get into a workshop where it was on loving your father. And this is when my dad left, and I was really mad at him and all that. And you
Okay.
know, the guy's got this tennis ball, and he's throwing it, and so you can only talk when he throws it. He throws it at me, and he says, "When's the last time you told you loved your dad?" And I'm like, "I never have. I hate the fucker," you know. And I start bawling, and it was in front of this whole room of like 30 people or whatever. And his whole point was he hated his dad, and they fought their whole life, and then his dad died of cancer, and he wished he could tell his dad he loved him. So he made me
Okay.
promise, write your dad a letter when you get home and tell him you love him. So I write my dad this letter, you and mom have your thing, but we have a relationship. It's the two of us. I want to have a relationship with you just between me and you. And I realize that what you and mom are doing is your own thing, and I'm just going to leave that be between the two of you. And he writes back this letter that's like, I'm glad I have somebody on my side. You know what I mean? Like, I finally won one onto my team. And I
Okay.
just remember reading the letter and just like, wow, that's dad. But that was the reason I tell the story is like I felt this energy just go off my shoulders. And it was like literally this visceral feeling of weight just going off my shoulders straight up. And I was like, what the fuck was that? I remember like, I'm a sophomore in high school or maybe junior. And I'm like, I was just like, whoa, what was that? And it just sort of was like, that's my dad. You know, he is who he is. And
Yes.
I'm not going to try to change him. I'm not going to get angry about how he is, but I'm going to accept him. So I think it was this really profound lesson, sort of acceptance of, people are the way they are. And it's sort of self-defeating to try to change them in this certain way. Um,
Yes. And also
right.
forgiving is really
Yeah.
important too.
So I think I felt that when my brother had, every time he saw my dad, he'd have violent dreams of killing people for years, decades. My sister hated him, couldn't, and I was just like, yeah, that's what he is. So I think that was something that, I tell now, it was just stuck in my head like, wow, that was trippy. Is one of those sort of spiritual experiences of there's something, interesting going on here. And then,
Yes.
you know, became an overachiever, top of my class in high school, went to the Naval Academy, was company commander, captain of the fencing team, did all this kind of stuff, get in the nuclear power program, which is a super hardcore, hardest, academically hard program to get into. And I start failing out of the second phase of the training program, and I get so messed up because I actually got yelled at by people saying you're a disgrace to the academy, a disgrace to your family, because I was failing out of the program. I got like screamed at by several different people, and I got suicidal. And so there was a chief petty officer who saw how bad I must have looked really bad, because he literally is walking down the hall and he's like, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And I was like, "Sure." And he ends up kind of doing like an intervention on me and kind of stopped the whole thing. But that was another kind of one of those moments where it sort of felt like it really shifted me into there's got to be something more to life than this stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. There has
And
to
I
be
also
something
remember,
more. I was talking about that
yeah,
on my live, I was talking.
yeah,
Sorry, I was during one of my sessions today. I was talking about that with somebody just sitting there
yeah,
realizing at a certain point that there has to be something more. And I chose a very kind of
radical,
radical,
accelerated.
kind of no dark path,
Yeah,
alcohol and bartending life, and for me, I had that realization too. But go ahead.
yeah. And I was going to say also in high school, Carl Sagan, I don't know if you ever heard of him, because he was this scientist who did PBS back. This is all pre-internet days, right?
Yes.
And there was a series called The Cosmos, and it was one of the first like Viking satellites, and it's going out into the solar system and it's sending back pictures, right? So it's like the first time you're seeing pictures of the Earth as this tiny blue dot in the sun, and you're kind of seeing this perspective of the galaxy. And he used to always say billions and billions of stars in the galaxy and billions of galaxies in the universe, right?
Yes.
And so I remember like with a buddy of mine, and we would swing on the swings in elementary school. We were in high school, but we go to this elementary school, swing things, and I'd be thinking in my head like, there's billions and billions and billions of fucking stars in this galaxy, and there's billions of galaxies in the universe, and it fucking matters what job I get. You know what I mean? Because my parents were the typical Korean, gonna be a doctor, gonna be a lawyer, whatever, and I'm just like, fuck. And I just couldn't like wrap my head around that. Like, why would that matter? Why does it matter in this whole cosmos? Why does it matter that I get a good job? You know what I mean? Like, it just never, but I still pushed that whole thing and was going in that direction. And then when I got suicidal and boom, 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 and that happened, And I guess through that, it really started. I started reading like all kinds of Taoist books, Buddhist books, um, Don Juan Carlos Castaneda, The Yaqui Way of Knowledge, and all these kinds of Native American traditions. So I started really diving deep into that, and that was in
I
'89.
started too.
Huh?
I was led to those two first.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's it. And I could hear, and that's what they led me to first, was pretty much exactly the same, the same type
Wow,
of
that's
book.
cool. Well, we were talking. Yeah, plus you had
But
your
go
teachers doing
ahead.
your qigong
Yes,
and tai chi, right?
yes, of course.
So
Actually,
I,
but go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I
Going.
had tai chi. I found a tai chi teacher back then, and you know, learned this Chen Man Ching Yang style tai chi. I could flip the whole form. I learned the thing like less than 6 months, and I could actually reverse it and do the whole thing mirrored. I was actually really good at it. And then breathing exercises, and I found that I could prevent myself from getting sick. So I used to get sick a lot every year,
Okay.
and had this really dramatic experience where I was like dead, and I knew like I'm down hard. I probably won't be able to get out of bed for like a week. I was super achy and really bad. And I just did these hardcore breathing exercises for like an
Yes.
hour before I went to bed. Woke up the next day and I literally thought I was dead because they had no pain in my body. I remember just going,
Hold on.
you know,
One
I feel
second.
fine. Like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
And it,
We were
can you hear
breaking
me?
up. Yeah, we were breaking up for a minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I had this experience when I did this qigong exercise. It's really hardcore, where basically I didn't get sick when I was 100% sure I was going to be dead to the world for at least a week. And so that kind of started this whole idea of breathing exercises, qigong, energy, internal energy development, and all that. And that was like '89 or something like that.
And can I
Um,
intervene for 1 second?
yeah.
Okay. Um, not intervene, but okay. So going back, as far as you saying that you got really good at the Yang style, which I think that's awesome, by the way, because I think that. Do you know that you were just all you were doing was tapping into muscle memory during that time? You're basically were activating your muscle memory to sit there and remember how to do it. If you are good at something, it's pretty much you're activating your muscle memory. So you're getting the complete download, okay, of that. And I
It,
believe that you're awakening, okay, and then I'm going to intervene again. I believe that your ascension has been for a very long time, because in order for you to do that, what you just explained, where you're like, I feel like I'm dying, like, it's kind of, those are ascension symptoms, that for a fact, I swear. And how you explained how you did the breathing exercises, and then
mm,
you woke up and you were fine the next day. Okay, so
yeah.
these are things that you actually can do through breathing techniques and through energy, as far as how would you put this? I'm sorry. I want to make sure, using the chi energy to heal
Yeah.
yourself. Yes. Go ahead.
I never would have
You
that
could have
whole
been
idea
going
of
through
that.
purges too.
Yeah.
You
What was
could
that?
you could have been going through purges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I never thought about it in that terms of like die before you die. Like, spiritual awakening is like this death of the old kind of thing. Like
I had like five of them.
yeah, I literally thought I remember distinctly remember opening my eyes and going, am I dead? Because I
Yes.
felt so fine and I was so bad right before I fell asleep. And I was just like, there's no way. And it was like gone. 100%. And I was just like touching my body. I'm touching my throat. Going, it was that dramatic for me. So that makes sense. And the muscle memory thing makes sense too, because it was weird. The guy was teaching it over semesters, and I wasn't there first semester, so they were halfway in it when I
Okay.
started, and I started like 3 weeks late in the semester. So I was like a semester and 3 weeks behind, and I caught all the way up, finished the whole form, and he was teaching me a sword form, and I could flip the whole thing in less than a semester. And the dude was looking at me like, "What the fuck?" And the other students were going, "Oh, well, we like to follow you." And I'm like, "I barely know this thing. I don't know what you're doing. You shouldn't be following me." But it was like you said. It felt very natural for me in terms of the movement and how to flow and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
that makes sense.
you were stepping into muscle memory, or you were activating something from an incarnation or multidimensional incarnation that was given to you from one of your higher selves, that obviously hit ascended mastery. I know for a fact, because that's how I started waking up. It was one of my things that I was tapping into, going, what the hell, how do I know this? Like,
Yeah.
the energy
Yeah.
art, you can call it Tai Chi, but it's a mix. And that's how you, and it's
Yeah.
really funny how you said that you were mixing what the yang style and then the sword style together. Those are I'm mixing probably about 3 or 5 different types of chi arts together that I remember tapping into the muscle memory, which is just interesting in itself. So yeah, so there you go.
Good old Lanto.
On your, yeah, that's funny. And I hope you didn't take it offense because
no.
of the Asian. But I'm like, man, this guy really wants to connect with you. Lanto is standing right here in front of me. I connected with him too, but my guides literally sent me to let's learn some Taoism, some Tai Chi, and well, I was already doing that, but they led me to it so I could have an understanding of what I was doing as far as the circulating the chi and feeling the energy and maybe seeing the purples come out of my hands and stuff like that. So I had an understanding, and this was in 2013, 2014. And of course, we go through the doubts, but you were actually being trained. You were tapping into the muscle memory. You're activating it on.
Wow. Cool. That helps. That actually helps put stuff together for me. So,
yeah. Go ahead. Can you hear the ice cream truck? Go ahead. We have music.
No, I didn't.
Good.
But that's appropriate. Right, I like that.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, and the other thing I think that kind of was interesting in terms of the story was I do think there's this process of healing, right? And unpacking your stuff and releasing it. And I don't think, so for years, even though I was doing all of this Qigong and energy work and stuff like that, and meditation, I hadn't really addressed some of the trauma that happened when I almost committed suicide and failed out of the nuclear power program, because that was super traumatic for me. It was the first real thing I'd ever failed at in my life.
Yes.
And sort of this kind of humiliation, disgrace, sense of shame about that, right? And so I go on for many years without really addressing any of that. And I think the fundamental Asian, minority kind of, stuff growing up in Arizona and all that. And I do think that not looking at that stuff and releasing it, right? Releasing it with love and forgiveness and releasing and thinking that you can just push forward and mentally focus in a specific way. I think that some of that, power of intention, where people are so focused and they're almost like they're afraid of the other side, right?
Yeah.
Probably more like what I was doing, which doesn't work. And ultimately, I kind of got really reckless in my life, and I got into all these sort of alternative lifestyles. In San Francisco, you can get way out there in terms of like crazy parties, drugs.
Yeah.
I had read this book, Agora at the Left Hand of God, which was this Hindu tradition and it talks about, some people become monks and other people dive into the world and they dive into drugs and they dive into alcohol and they dive into, making money and they do all that stuff and then they go through it. And if they cannot get hooked into it, they actually grow faster. But 99% of the people end up drug addicts and alcoholics and all that, right? And I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And right after reading that book, I met this woman who was a drug addict who I kind of fell for. And she was like, she literally said, "What are you falling for me? I'm a drug addict, And I'm like, "You're kind of cool. I like you." And ended up
I'm sorry.
ended up sticking a needle in my arm. And I went from like 6 years of like, the worst thing I did was Coca-Cola. I was like super clean, no caffeine, no nothing, right? No alcohol. Doing all this meditative breathing exercises. I was standing on rocks barefoot, doing the whole Buddha pose, for like an hour every night. All of that stuff too, like shooting a needle up my arm and going hardcore. So I was kind of crazy like that, where I just go super hardcore. Okay. And I thought part of me, my logical mind was like, oh, I'm here to help her, I'm being of service or whatever. But, ended up, I thought, oh, maybe I'll play around with this for a year and see what happens, and then I ended up like 6.5 years down the road doing, crack and meth and heroin and all kinds of stuff. And that, there was many times when I kind of knew in one hand that I was being watched over, because I should have been arrested. There's a couple of times where should have been arrested and nothing happened, so some crazy stories like that. And I remember just feeling, and I started doing the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi all the time when I was trying to get clean. Lord,
Okay.
make me a center of my peace, blah, blah, blah. And I would like
That's
say it as
literally
a mantra.
fighting for your life. But go
Huh?
ahead. You're right. That is fighting for your life, big time.
Yeah. I mean, I had a job. I was kind of functional. Like I had jobs and stuff, and I'd be unemployed for periods of time, but I had jobs too. And I would drive for hours in this one job, all these Sacramento in the Bay Area, like 2 hours each way, 2.5 hours. And I wouldn't have the radio on. I would just do the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi over and over and over again. Lord, make me into my peace. With his hatred, let me so love. With his injury, pardon. With his doubt, let me bring faith. With his despair, let me bring hope. With his darkness, let me bring light. You know, that thing. And I would just say it over and over and over and over again. So it was like this mantra of desiring to be in service. And, but kept going back, falling off, going back like multiple times, hundreds of times. And then there was just this, again, it was the same kind of thing where one day I had the speed pipe in my hand and I was taking a hit and I just looked at it and I said, this is not who I am. And it's that same energy that when my dad, it just went, this weight just went, and it was gone. And then I never touched it again. So,
Okay.
it was super kind of cool, you know. I was just like, whoa, what was that? But never went through any kind of real issues. I never relapsed. I never had anything. It was just, and all the desire was gone. And I was just like, wow. And then I went into the Course in Miracles. I don't know if you heard of that, but
I've heard of it. One of my friends wanted me to read the book, but at that point, such a big book. At the point in time, I haven't read it yet, and I went so quantum at that point in time
yeah,
that it's just
you
I
skipped.
couldn't. I could barely even read. I was like, I don't even think I can't read this right now. Like I was so up here where it was hard for me to read. But yes, I have seen it and I've heard some about it, and hopefully maybe I'll be able to read it.
So I found it a couple months. I used to think it was like a year, but when I started calculating it, literally I had stopped in probably it was between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it was late November to early December of '06, I think it was. And '07 February, found the Course in Miracles, a study group, and it's where I met Jacqueline, my wife, right?
Okay.
And found this, stumbled into it through kind of this miraculous thing where you just, again, totally guided to the bookstore. And I was complaining about this. I was doing a Carolyn Meese thing, and I was like, she should have these archetype cards pre-made where you can buy them. And I was doing this Carolyn Meese thing, and I walk into the bookstore, and there's a Course in Miracles and the Carolyn Meese archetype cards touching each other. And it was on 2 hours earlier. I was like, they should make these fucking cards so you can just go in a store and buy them. Why do I have to make these archetype cards? Because I was hand making these archetype cards on 3x5. And then 2 hours later, I walk in this bookstore and they're touching each other. And I'm like, okay, I'm a dummy and I'm a slow learner, but I can fucking pick up that goddamn message right there. I'm like, freaking out. My buddy's with me and I'm like totally tripping, but I'm just sitting there. I'm like, all right, Course in Miracles, what the hell is that? And the dude was starting the Course in Miracles group that night. I'm in the bookstore, first night, and he's just like, hey, are you here for the Course in Miracles study group? I'm like, no, dude, stay away from me. And but I also remember reading a Wayne Dyer book where, in the beginning of a chapter of a book, it'd have a quote from a book, and
Yes.
in like 3 chapters in Wayne Dyer's Living a Life of Inspiration has like a Course in Miracles quote. And I remember reading the quote at the beginning of a chapter going, I should just read that book instead of reading other people's books where they reference that book all the time. Why don't I just go to the source and read that friggin' book? And that was probably a year before. And then I did the Carol Meese thing, and then stumble into this bookstore this night, and there's this guy going, hey, we're doing a Course in Miracles study group tonight. Are you joining? And I'm like, no. He's like, have you ever heard of it? And I'm like, come to think of it, I actually have. But he was following me around the bookstore, and I remember kind of like, in my head thinking, if you don't back off, I'm going to have a problem with you real quick. Like, I was like that, you know what I mean? Like, back the fuck off. And
Which that's your resistant controls, by the way.
What was that?
Those thought processes are your resistance controls. We call them control. I call them controls.
Desiring to control.
No, when you have those type of thoughts, like you're like sitting there and saying back, those are some type of controls. I call them. That's what I call them.
Like mechanisms in your
resistance, in a sense of not wanting to.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was freaking out. This dude's following me on bookstore. I go, oh, you've heard of Course in Miracles? And he's now one of my best friends, right? But he's following me, and I'm thinking, dude, you need to back off right now, or we're gonna have a problem. And then I see the Carolyn Meese archetype cards touching the Course in Miracles, and I'm like, oh, all right. So like I said, I'm kind of slow, but I can get that message. Um, so I turned around to the dude and I said, what's the deal? And he goes, yeah, we're having it every Wednesday. And I had dinner plans that night. And I'm like, all right, I got dinner tonight. I'm not going to make it, but I'll start next week. And I was so broke I couldn't barely buy the book. Like I was literally freaking out. Like I don't have $30 to buy this stupid book. So I was like, oh, fuck, I guess if I'm gonna go to the group, I better buy the goddamn books, right? So I buy the book, and within 6 months, this guy Scott says, I'm moving back to Seattle. And I'm like, what's going to happen to the Course in Miracles study group? And he's like, you're taking over. Because he was one of these guys who sort of kicked me in the ass along my whole path. And I'm like, no friggin' way, dude. No way. And he's like, no, you got to take it over. And I literally would start quivering. My whole body would shake and I would start crying. And I would just start bawling. I mean, like ugly cry, like freaking out crying. Like, no fucking way, dude. I can't do it. And he's just like, no, you got to do it. And I'm like, well, what happens if I don't do it? And he goes, the group will fall apart. You are doing it. You need to do it. And I'm leaving and you need to do it. And so after about 2 weeks of freaking out, I said, okay, I'll facilitate a talk, but I'm not guiding no meditation, because he did a guided meditation at the beginning, right? I'm like, I ain't guiding no meditation, dude. And he's just like, yeah, you're doing the guided meditation. And I start crying and like freaking out, right? And so, I ended up, taking over the group, guiding meditation. And, the other thing Scott pushed me into was, he said, you're a healer. And one day we were walking down the street, because in the interim of him moving back to Washington, he needed a place to stay for like a month or whatever. So I let him stay with me. And we're walking down the street and I pat him on the back. And he's like, see, I had a pain in my back. And now it's gone because you touched it. That's what I'm saying. I've never met a healer like that could do that. You're a freaking healer. And I'm like, fuck you, motherfucker. Like I literally thought, you're playing me, motherfucker, and you need to fucking back down. Fuck you. And he was just like, no, I swear, I had a pain in my back. You slapped me in the exact spot where it was, and it's gone. I've never met anybody who could do that. You need to fucking heal. And I'm like, fuck you, motherfucker. You're fucking trying to play my ass right now. And, he was just like, no. I'm like, you are such a fucking dick. And so he actually signed me up. This is my story. Funny at times.
You sound like me yelling at the car with my guides. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Sorry,
right?
No, it's not really. It depends.
That's the connection, right? You get it. I get it.
Sitting here like, what are you guys doing out there? No,
so he signs me up for a site. There's a spiritual bookstore I used to do psychic healing fairs.
Group.
So he signs me up to do a healer at this spiritual bookstore healer fair where they're supposed to have all these energy healers. And I've never done anything like this in my life. And he signs me up. And he's like, here's your table. You're going to sit here or whatever. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now? What do I do? And he's just like, just sit there, do your thing, do whatever you do. I don't care. And so some family comes in, a woman comes in with her. It was a mother and a daughter. Mother is probably in the 70s or whatever. Daughter's in the 40s or whatever. And they go to another healer, and that woman was supposedly psychic. And she says, oh, you're supposed to see him. Go see him. And so she directs the couple to me. And I'm in a room by myself. And I was scared to death, right? And so the other healer in the room doesn't show up. So I was the only one there with my own private room, which thank God I needed it, because I was freaking out. And so this couple comes in, and the woman's like, I have problems with breathing, with my lungs. I'm like, okay, and I just put my hands on her lungs. And it's like one of those $10 for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it was, right? Do a little. And what I would do, because I had no idea what I was doing, was I would just meditate. And I was like, get myself as far out of the way, but I could feel this flow of energy.
Yeah.
Through, right? So it was like surrender.
The universal energy, yes.
Yep, I'm surrendering. I'm like, okay. And I could feel it coming over my arms. I could feel all this energy flowing through. And she emails me like 2 weeks later and says, can you come over to the house and do that again? I'm like, sure, what happened? And she's like, my mom has been coughing this black lung for this last 2 weeks, but she thinks it's clearing out whatever's in her lungs, right? Okay. So I go over to her house, do a full hour of just sitting there. And again, I have no idea when, I'm just like, all right. And she a month later, I think, emails me and says that she had this lung problem her whole life. She was on all these medications and asthma and couldn't do anything. And she was out playing tennis and going for walks and off all of her drugs and completely cleared. You know what I mean? And she was just like, you know, and the daughter, who's older mother, got into Reiki and all that stuff and said, whatever you did, I need to study it. And so she went and got a Reiki certification and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of like this part where I was just like, there was another funny story. So I was kind of like in this process of sort of surrendering and saying, okay, if I'm supposed to do this, you know, you know, show me or whatever. I don't know what the fuck, you know.
We're such indigos, but we're just like, but fine, I'll do it.
Right. So this is another funny one. So I'm kind of in that space where I've done a little of this stuff now, and I'm kind of getting this feel. And I actually had done massage before the energy stuff. And the massage, though, I would get what the person had. And so that always freaked me out. So I did have this fear of healing but when I did the Course of Miracles and I started feeling the energy, it would just flow through. So nothing happened, right? But I did have this kind of like, in the early stages, I was afraid of, you know, am I going to get sick, you know? So I'm literally kind of having this prayer conversation with, you know, whatever, just like, hey, if you want me to do this, and I'm starting a new job in an auto body. So I manage body shops.
Okay.
So I was starting as an estimator at a collision repair. So this is a bunch of dudes, you know, and first day on the job, never met this guy. I walk in the door, and for some reason I was having this, okay, if I'm supposed to do the healing thing, you're gonna have to show me a sign. And I open up the door, and there's this guy, Raul, and he's sitting there and he's going like this. And I'm like, really? Right here? Right freaking now? Are you kidding me? Like, I just walked in the door. I don't know any of these people, right? And I'm like, show me a sign. And this guy's going, oh, I'm in pain. And so I was like, hey, how you doing? My name's Sheldon. Nice to meet you. And he's like, hey, I'm Raul. And I'm like, I might be able to help you with that shoulder. And he was just like, what do I got to do? And I'm like, just sit there and do nothing. How's that? And he's like, cool. And so I went like this, and I put my hands on his shoulder for maybe 30 seconds or a minute. Because again, it's my first day at work. First time I meet this guy, I'm a little nervous. Try to get out of the way, feel some energy flow, say, okay, cool, go, you know, show me where my desk is. I go to work. The end of the next day, second day at work, 5 o'clock, we're just the two of us. And he goes, hey, you think you could do that thing that you did again? And I'm like, sure. Is it better? And he's like, yeah, it's like 90% better. And I think that maybe, you know, if you did it again, it might help it. And so I'm like, sure. So I do like 2 minutes or whatever. Turns out he didn't tell me this till like a year later, but he had a torn rotator cuff and was supposed to have surgery, and it was basically better. He never had the surgery, and he could do push-ups and lift weights and pull-ups, and his shoulder was completely fine. So that was another one of those where I was just like, maybe there's something here. You know, that was kind of cool. And he used to tell all the guys in the shop, you know, you needed to have Sheldon, you know. So guys would come up to me, some of them who were open, you know, and they go, hey, my knee's got that thing. Can you do that thing that you do? And I would just like lay hands on their knee for like a minute, and they would be like, no, get back to work. Guys that were hurt, and I would just like, go back to work. They'd be like, okay, cool. They go back to work. So that was part of the whole unfolding
your journey,
of that.
Your unfolding of your journey.
Yeah. And since then, I think, you know, it's just been sort of a process of layers of stuff coming up, you know, stuff will come up, and allowing yourself to sort of be open. For me, it's always been this line of openness in the heart.
Yes.
And stay open in the heart. And you can feel it shut down. So I was in this position of managing body shops, right? And so, and I used to get really angry. You know, I took everything personally. So if I saw guys fucking off in the shop, what I perceived they were fucking off, I would get pissed. You know, like, you think you're punking me right now? You think that I don't see you? You think I don't know? You know, and I would just literally get angry. And after, when doing the course and sort of learning how the mind works, I could just sort of watch those thoughts flow through and laugh at them, right? They're still crazy ones, right? And I'm like, wow, that was a crazy one. Because I would be like, I want to rip that motherfucker's head off. And they're like, woo, that was a bad one. You know, you don't really need to do that, do you? And sometimes I'd have to go back to the office, and, you know, and I would grab my mouse and I would stare at my screen. I'd pull up a report and I'd just do some breathing.
I call it the battle of the aspects. because
Yeah.
we're multidimensional, by the way, just like
Yeah.
letting people know. So some of those are, you can call them distortions if you want, but that also could be an aspect too. I've had one when my guides were explaining that's an alter ego. Like you have to understand that there's different aspects, but to me, I feel like it's multidimensional.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you have to clear, or it's something that you're programmed with. And I could go into more depths with it by other people's frequencies, television shows that we've watched. Had to do a massive clearing for that for all the years that I've watched TV and stuff. So those are kind of like programmings, but then there's also other aspects too,
Mm.
which to me, I believe that there's a program of aspects, but this is my diagnosis. We'll get into it in a few years when I figure that out. When I go into the more depths of it.
Okay.
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 But go ahead. But you feel the floods, that anger, the thoughts flying, and you're like, whoa, where did that one come out of?
Yeah.
Who is this? If you're actually able to start become aware of those thoughts that are coming through, where you could start asking maybe, who is this? Is this a higher self? Where did I get this from? Is this some distortion running? Is this
Okay.
program
Like,
movie
how
that
did
I
that pattern even get in there? Is
yes,
that what you mean?
yes. How did that, because you have to understand that we're frequencies. We're open,
Mm-hmm.
we're basically, well, once you get up to a certain level, you're going to realize that, and you get into the quantum, everything's pretty much considered a quantum computer system.
A
And
quantum what?
I call it like quantum computer system, if you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at quantum as far as like when you actually get to see your Merkaba vehicle and stuff. If you look at it, it's kind of like this program that's like a whole nother story. But it's like it's the frequency channels of what comes through, or what you've seen, other behaviors or thoughts, or it could just be different frequency channels that you're tuning into, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't even realize that you're tuning into these different frequency channels that could be running in the consciousness too.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that I had to learn, as far as when you start accessing the super consciousness, or trying to understand the awareness of the super consciousness, that some of the thoughts that could be coming through those, if it could be an aspect, it also could be some channel running in the consciousness, in our consciousness, collective
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, like that whole idea, like you were talking about, like in all space and time is happening, all planes of reality, all
Yes.
possibilities are all happening in the present
Multi-universe.
now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that whole multiverse aspect where everything is happening now. So I go here, it's happening now. I go here, it's happening now.
That's why
Everything
you
is
have to
happening.
master the thoughts.
What was that?
Mastering the thoughts is
Mm-hmm.
really important, and that's where getting to 0 point and paying attention to what comes through, especially the ones like that, because some of them I realized I
Without
got
getting
from my
hooked into them, right? Because
some
it's
of
like,
them I realized I got from my own father, where I was like, sounds just like my dad. So, thinking right now,
yeah.
what he verbally says. It's funny when I started paying attention. It's called observation, because you're
Mm-hmm.
like, good. It's funny.
Yeah, and where the pattern came from, like
Yes.
parental or lineage kind of patterns,
Yes.
or what, right?
Or past life, where you have aspect come in and you're like, whew, like, yeah, like the crazy aspect warrior jumping in. That's like another, and you're like, oh my God, who is this?
What are you doing? He's like, put your hands up.
Like, exactly, and you're like,
Not like
whoa.
that, like this.
So it could be that. You could be experiencing an aspect too. It's just multi-dimensional.
And for me, my experience with that whole thing has been, regardless of whether it's another dimension, pattern, whatever, right? The trick has always been not getting caught into it.
Yes.
And being able to sort of, is like this line that you're holding, in Taoism, the Tao Te Ching, where they talk about like the master walks across a lake like it's a frozen lake. He's alert, he's at peace, he's calm, but he's also super alert because the ice could crack at any moment. I always love that sort of metaphor, that vision of this sort of really calm but alert, right? And that to me has always been the sort of the way that you need to be aware of what's going in, because it can hook you like a fish and it drags you, and now you're going down with that. No, that guy really is a dick, and I do need to go punch him in the face, or you need to go scream at him, you know what I mean, and put him in his place, versus, oh wow, that was just a crazy, that was just a trigger and a crazy thought that came through, and this too shall pass. And,
Yes.
wow, that was a crazy one. Let me get back into my heart center space and open it back up and feel good. Feel good again. And then I would go and I could still address it. So this was sort of how, how I learned was, managing a shop. How do you do it with an open heart from a loving space, compassionate, and yet still make things work? You're still moving. So I found that, if I said, hey, what are you doing? Hey, what's going on here? Right. After I cleared everything, I could walk up to the guy and say, hey, what's going on? Versus what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Which is how I would have done it before. So the energy would have been super different. Right. So then I could just go up and go, hey, what's going on, guys? And they'd be like, oh, we're doing this and this. And it got funny because I was pretty open with the guys in my shop. I remember one time I went up to two preppers. And again, that sort of thought like, what the fuck are they doing? They're just standing around fucking off. And I walked up and I didn't get triggered by it at all. And I was just like, hey, guys, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, we thought that car was supposed to go in the booth. And did you say in the meeting that you wanted that one? And you said that was paint one, number two. And that was, so basically they were totally trying to figure out how to, they were working and they were trying to figure out which car needed to go in the paint booth next based on what they thought I had told them, right? So they were like, no, he said he wanted that one next. So they were totally trying to do what I was wanting to do, right? And so I would come up to them and I was like, oh, that's cool. No, we need that one going in first, and then that one second. And oh, okay, cool. And I said, you want to know what my mind was thinking? And they're like, what? I said, I just want to share with you because sometimes crazy thoughts happen. As a manager, when I'm walking through, I actually thought you guys were fucking off. And there's a part of my mind that wanted to come over and go, what the fuck are you guys doing? And they were like looking at me like, okay, boss. I said, I just wanted to share that with you, my mind, manager's mind. Sometimes it goes crazy. But, have a great day, and I appreciate it, and you're doing it exactly what you're blah, but I just want to share that. And then I walk off, and they're like looking at me like, are you nuts?
That's funny.
So
that is good. That's
learning
that's
to
really
have fun in the craziest scenarios, I think, and not taking things so seriously.
When you're especially when you're battling the different
yeah
aspects
yeah
of us. Yeah, I've been there to the point where I don't know. It's just getting crazy now because I have all different types of aspects coming in right now, and at my higher selves where I'm like, I tell them,
you're like, hey, can you guys calm down for a second?
Love. This is where we need to talk. Like I have to sit there and talk to my multidimensional self, and this is when you get up to the oversoul. It's not that it's for good causes, but it's this like power going, we need peace treaties and this needs to be done. And we need to get rid of the telephone poles. Who's in charge of this? And just like, but then it turns into that like kind of craziness. And then the warrior spirit comes in, and then the commander's coming in too. The biggest commander's just like, get in line, blah, blah, blah. Like, why isn't this done? And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, like, regroup. Like,
let me ask you this.
This is like the different, this is when you get to a certain multidimensional, these are different higher selves that I'm integrating. And then as I'm integrating, I have to clear the distortions. So I kind of like, I do like trying to align, which I was taught by a trainer that I finally, my counsel was like, go see this guy because you are like him. And he even said that when I talked to him, he's like, you're like my little Smurfette, like the other one of me, if that makes sense. And he was like, you got to get like in the oneness, and he was giving me all these tools because I was integrating all these aspects, and he's made it to the oversoul and to the crisis soul, but it's kind of like the multidimensionals are still having to be integrated too as well. So it's just very interesting. And I truly believe that sometimes people don't understand that they can call it the battle within. The battle within could also be your aspects. You call in the night and the light sitting there having a showdown, like the higher
like
self.
A literal battle within.
Yes, sitting there going like this. So I've taken charge where I go, okay. And I get, and a lot of my counsels are my higher selves that I communicate with all the time. And that took different aspects of me, multidimensional, and family and ancestors too, which is interesting. I won't get into that right now. So the integrating that, I had to take the driver's seat, and I literally said, this is it. Like, because I had to sit there and say, I'm taking the driver's seat. I'm not a puppet anymore, basically, and I'm gonna drive, and y'all are gonna get into the oneness. Like,
I'm
and
sorry. You
you
froze
know,
there for a little bit.
did it? Oh, I was saying, I was explaining when those trains of thoughts, basically learning self mastery, but mastery with your thoughts is really important. But I realized a lot of them were also aspects, and then integrating the aspects, I kind of had to take the wheel, if you want to say, and be like, we're going into the cosmic law of oneness at this point. All my aspects, let's merge
together.
because some of them are very passionate, especially some of the high commanders that are, sitting there. But I'm like, okay, it's like, so you kind of have to mold everything into one and kind of bring everything into the alignment and into the center. Okay.
Original wholeness.
Yes, and I also was prepped only like probably about, I would say about 6 months ago, 7 months ago. Thoughts are creation. If you're going to become in complete mastery, if you want to call it ascended mastery, you have to learn how to control your thoughts because of number one, your Merkaba vehicle is a consciousness. So what you create, you're going to manifest into your life. So your thoughts are manifestation too. So I had to sit there and control those type of thoughts, and then that's where I had to sit there and do the observing, is breaking down, going, okay, is this an aspect? Is this multidimensional, multi-universe? Is this a frequency running? Is this the ego coming up? You see what I'm saying? In order to clear it, I'm sure after a while you had to sit there and learn. But then sometimes it's also our funny aspect that still makes us laugh. That might be 3D dimensional. That makes any sense. All where you have to still laugh, even though it's the thoughts are funny, if that makes any sense at all.
For sure, they're absolutely hilarious.
When they come through, it could be like, I don't know, it could be like some type of Aztec warrior of mine coming in, going, "I'm mitigating." I don't know. Like, it's like, who knows? Like, that's what I've had so many different, and that's where.
See, I haven't gotten to this point where the thoughts feel like a different. They always are pretty much thoughts that I can identify with.
Okay, so it's like the clear, but have you been able to clear them as far as managing?
Yeah, like I think for the most part, I'm pretty good. I feel like witnessing the whole thing, which to me feels like, because I think in the course they always talk about things, and people will get the ego or whatever, and people will get afraid of their ego, and then they would want to kill the ego or whatever. And I'm like, good luck with that. Let me know how that turns out.
You literally have to laugh at it.
Yeah, that's what
I sit there and I sit there and laugh at it, and to me it's funny, but that could be also the inner child that I finally came connected with. Yeah, it's you kind of getting in touch with your inner child when you see the thoughts come through.
Yeah. To me, it's the whole "you must be as a child to return to the kingdom of heaven," innocent wonder, right? It's just like, what the hell is that? That was a good one.
That's it's like my inner child, which I think might be like my avatar aspect is actually kind of, well, so there you go, where did that come from? Like in the thought process, in the mind, going sitting there laughing, that was out of left field. Like, who's running this distortion? On what universal level?
Two questions. One is, do the whole idea of ascended masters, right? Ascended masters being people that have embodied human form and then mastered it, right?
Yes.
Are some of the people that are your higher aspects and these other beings that have never been in human third dimensional form? And does that affect how they look at what they think you can do or that they want you to do? And you know what I mean? Like, in other words, I've heard that before, like angelic beings, right? They've never been in a body, so they really don't get.
They don't. A lot of them don't, and then there are some that have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I did go into, there was a certain point where this earth did vibrate high enough at a certain point where we could, the dimensional beings could come in. Okay, and so I'm in the physical body too. This was also, we knew we were coming in on this experience, but the vibration was a lot higher on this planet during that time. Okay,
like Lemuria or something.
Yes. So I would say yes to both. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would say yes and yes.
And then
So I
For
do, but then there's some that know because they're in higher dimensions. Sometimes they'll just be looking at me going like this, as far as going, it's gonna be okay. I have the blue, my big blue 100 feet tall dimensional beings. They give me messages through my mind, like trying to give me a flower when I'm going, and they're like, they sit here and go like, but they give messages in funny ways and be like, here's a flower, calm down, or they'll give me a message that they're patting me on the head, right? Going, it's gonna be okay, and I'm like, so it's like, it's kind of like the ins and outs where they're like, it's gonna be all right, because I have such the higher level of, it's kind of like me being in this vessel in a higher self suit where I'm going, where is my star family? And like, where is my starship? No, and stuff like that, going, what happened, and what can I do to assist this place? So it's
uh-huh.
kind of like waking up, and I'm sitting here like kind of being like, oh my god, like, why aren't we able to teleport, or
Right.
just certain things, like here I am, and I feel like an alien literally sitting here in a physical vessel. So these are,
You look around going, what the heck?
I'm like, where is my flying car? Like, but, we don't, thank you. It's saying, I'm sorry, we didn't, evolving from flying cars, moving through consciousness. There you go. So, materialistic and physical form. I used to be able to do that. Like I said, certain things where you're just like, those are the points where it can be the frustrations, but it shouldn't. I feel like it's still me clearing certain distortions
Hmm.
that might be coming up. And also sitting here going, okay, did they know that we used to be able to do this? Where it was normal for us to sit here and talk to higher dimensional beings all day long. And we used to be able to be
Hmm.
telepathic with them and use crystals to connect with them, and just beyond like certain technologies and stuff like that, if you want to call it that. I was like, it used to be normal. So if I sit here and talk to you guys and I could see you, but nobody else can, but we used to be able to see you guys. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Hmm.
what the hell happened? It's kind of like a birthing upon birthing upon birthing is what
Hmm.
I feel like. Um, and as far as my experience goes. So as you sit here and you integrate, and the whole point about integrating multidimensional into this into this physical form is you going to be able to integrate your higher selves in the physical body, which
Hmm.
the light body is a part of the, which will become a part of the physical body. Thank you guys. It's kind of like the etheric coming into the physical body, but I believe it's the higher selves.
Hmm.
And it's higher self, and then it's higher selves. So it's coming and integrating in. And these are different processes where we should and we used to be able to morph into our different multidimensional aspects at a certain point in time, which I call this, and what a lot of people call this, the God self.
Hmm.
Now, your power center is your heart. The heart has to be on. A lot of people don't understand this. You can have certain gifts and stuff like that, but if you're using it for the wrong ways, especially right now, you'll go through many tests, and then you get stuff taken away. You get it taken away, it could be for a while, and then those abilities will get taken away. Um, so these are just certain things, which is not funny, guys, anyways, with your roles, because sometimes you just like, here you go, here's your abilities, so let me just see if you can float with your little rubber floaties, or throw you in the ocean and you don't have floaties. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Some people get
like, I
thrown in the
know
deep end.
people get thrown in the deep end and they don't know the rules. If you don't have the books, the laws, I was like, what happened to the universal books that we used to have, and the universal law books? We got rid of those. Why aren't they here? Like, how are you? These are my debates with my councils, where I'm like, okay, and then they get recommended or whatever as they go through their ascension process. Anyways, okay, fine. They're like, we'll talk about that later. But these are my certain things. It's like, these are the tests. Okay, so fine. Um, if you want to call the initiations, the heart center has to be on. The heart is your power, okay, And that's why I was told by the higher self, the oversoul is just loud as hell. And going, what are you doing? Calm down, please. Like this thing. And when you hear it, I heard it in my heart center, and I'm sitting there going, like, oh my God, what is this talking to me? This is my oversoul. But you have the heart right here is your power. So this has to be on, which you're correct. Okay. And I've heard the right hand is also your power hand. And then this is your clearing and releasing hand, which is the left hand. Now, this is something that was shown to me. And I've also been taught this is like the light hand and then your night hand. It's kind of balancing the polarities of your light and dark. And this is the way that I see it, is that we have to come together as one to create a purple ray, or a gold ray, but I see a purple ray, like an ultraviolet, if that makes sense.
Okay.
In order to unify. And this is something, since I woke up, I was sitting there just drawing over and over and over again. So it's like probably the battle within, and then trying to come together as one, but you're kind of pulling in all your aspects, all in you, multidimensional, and trying to pull them together as one and to clear distortions for them all at the same time. Now, this is getting up to the oversoul process, okay? To the God self. Okay, so we'll go back to that for a minute. So you this is certain things and getting up to the God self. Now, the God self is to me, it's source consciousness, God consciousness. Your heart center is definitely completely on. I've been, if you want to call, bungeed up and down in all different ways to be able to be shown what the God self is, to realize that this is who we are. We are sovereign, free, we have free will. And this is me, in a sense, saying I'm going to step in the driver's seat. Okay. The God self also has God, if you want to say godlike abilities. And
so
okay, that's fine. But
the driver's seat is
stepping into your heart center, stepping into the power seat. Mm-hmm. And realizing that you are sovereign and you are free, and that you need to clear all the distortions, and I call them clearing controls of the matrix system. Now, there's basically getting out of the matrix system. Okay, collapsing
again, what?
Out of the matrix system, collapsing the 3 and collapsing the 4th matrix system, if you want to call that. So you can sit there in advance, but if you're sitting there at the God self and you're using it for the wrong reasons, I pretty much know, my perception, my experience so far is that you'll get smacked down. Not that I did it, but I was shown that these are things for you. This is
mechanisms of how it works.
It's a mechanism. This is the God self is God consciousness to me.
Yeah.
Is source consciousness. Okay, you can't get any more than what it is, but it's kind of like stepping fully into your power state. Okay, and the power is in your heart center. And I stretch that so many times because I realize that you can feel it on. You can feel it running like I'm sure you have felt it, like
yep.
You know, the plug-in, I call it, of the energy, and that's what starts your whole field. And
I could feel
also
it when I shut it down, when I'd like walk through the shop. If something upset me, sometimes it would shut down and I wouldn't even know what I saw. I could just feel it shut down, and I'd be like, what was that? And I would pay attention. I go, oh wow, when I was out of my peripheral vision, I thought I saw something that upset me, and I wouldn't even consciously see it, but I could feel my heart shut down.
Yeah, you can feel when the heart shuts down. Yep. The other thing is that I can feel when other people's hearts are shut down. I'll be walking right next to them, and my heart will go like that, and I realize that I'm actually feeling them. And because
that must have been tricky to figure out.
It took me a little while, and then I realized, but it's also our hearts can shut down if our family's down. Yeah. Around us, and I'm talking about, it could be soul family too. It could be and also, like, anybody, if I'm in a session with somebody, you're still my soul, I can still feel it. Okay, so then I have to sit there and hold my field, my energy at this point, and realize, okay, and kind of just, you can call it distancing, but maybe on an energetic level. So getting used to, if you can feel that, that's great, because you're at a really good awareness level if you can feel the going in and out. Now, it just took me a while that I'm shutting down, so then I have to go regroup. I have to figure, figure out my energy. It's always just this huge mastery. It's learning mastery, learning ascended mastery. God self is ascended mastery. I can tell you that much. You can call it avatar consciousness, God self consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But it's pretty much at this point, like what my guides say, you're literally going to ascended mastery in a physical body. That's what you're doing. That's what we're learning to do in a sense. Especially in the next 10 years. Okay. These are things you have to learn how to master. Okay. And it's a cool experience. But I'm going to cut off here because it's getting dark.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure we could go all day long. Did you want to share anything else?
No, I feel like those were some of the fun, interesting things, and it just keeps getting more fun and more interesting.
Wait till you see the beings standing around you and the cat people, or the Lyrans, or whoever end up coming to you. Just don't freak out. I mean,
I'm looking forward to it.
Probably be Lanto standing there. I remember I saw an Ascended Master just like floating over my bed one time, just like it was no big deal, and I'm sitting there going, "What are you doing?" And I can see him as physical as day.
Wow.
Right? In a higher different a different dimension, just sitting there floating. Just certain stuff like that. And then sometimes they'll come in their little Merkaba vehicles they'll be about this big. I've seen that too, and realized. And then they've taught me how they actually fly to the Merkabas. And explaining ascended mastery to me that I feel like I literally got up to a school with them to learn how to. And I was sitting there going, what is going on here? That was interesting. And then seeing I would say it's getting to a point to vibrate enough to be able to see them. I feel like it's our frequency to be able to step into their dimension. And that's something else they were explaining. They're like, the more you vibrate high, and also it has to do where you are too, on the earth plane, also the vibrational frequencies of where you are. That's why I know I need to get to Arizona, and I'm hoping to get to Costa Rica after that. That right there is Arizona probably accelerated your spiritual path anyways, because of what's there, the grid lines, and the vortexes.
Interesting.
Yes. So
that's
it's
cool.
and the vibrational frequencies are very high there. So I know I have to go there. I have to get my gold star. That's what I call it. Connect with my family, get to my brothers. Okay, because at least I know where at least the brothers are, like my sisters, because they're sitting here going, I know where the family is located at this point. It's me getting to that point, and then getting, I call it the gold star, and then moving to the next location, which I'm hoping. Being very drawn to Costa Rica, but it could also be as far as ancestral for me.
Ancestral what?
As far as ancestral for me. But yeah, so if you feel drawn to somewhere and you have this urge, go.
I want to go to Costa Rica. I think we talked about it.
Yeah, you probably have your soul family there, and if you need your activation, your power source, boop, I call it. No, not like that. What is it like? Like Zelda or something like that. Sometimes. So get your boost and just head on to the next location. Your download. Thank you guys. That was it. I'm still looking for a window. Just to come. Like, just let me in somewhere else. I know where to get there. Let me just hop on over to this one.
We just got to get you to Arizona.
Exactly. No, I will. Yeah, exactly. And you're in California.
Yeah.
So I have to go there too. I've had dreams about going to California too, of being there, and those are my premonitions. You can call them premonitions, but it's basically me traveling through time, looking at timelines, going, okay, which one to go to? Mexico
space
one
here.
too. Yeah.
We got space here.
Yes.
Come
And
on out.
I'll have to come see you guys too, because you're my soul family. I found my soul brother.
Right.
He's one of my brothers. I was like, I know you. Like, we know each other big time. And your wife.
Jacqueline.
Yeah, and I was like, and your wife's a goddess, an incarnation of a goddess. So it's funny, yes. So we'll get you guys on here hopefully another time if she wants to share.
Yeah.
Whenever
Yeah.
it is during, her time when she wants to share, and get you guys on here as far as for the, setting the conscious template for couples and relationships and, higher consciousness relationships.
Which was bummed we missed your thing, but I think it was in the morning this morning, right?
Yeah, it was rambling on all day. I was like, okay, I'm going live. Okay, like the higher self was like, this needs to come out.
Okay.
Yeah, so I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll definitely listen to it.
Sheldon, you can also, as far as any watchers go, you can check them out. I'm going to give your website too at the bottom where the descriptions are.
Okay.
As far as your coaching, and you do healing, like do you do remote healing?
It's 3rivers.life, but I'll give it to you.
Okay.
So it's 3 like THREE rivers, and instead of .com it's .life. So the website is www.3rivers.life. So absolutely, that would be cool. People can check it out.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Thank you.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
It is. It's always fun. I'm like sitting here going, oh, driver, get in the driver's seat, guys. Turn your heart centers on, and be the driver, and tell everybody else. What is this? It's one of my friends. He tells them to get in the back of the bus. It's really funny. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm drawing it big. It's Allison's husband. Okay. Stop recording. I'm good. All right, bye.
Okay, bye.